Well, here I am, working safely in the confines of my own home. And listen, I plan to stay here for a while. I am very, very lucky in that most of my work is actually conducted virtually, with the exception of sometimes I go and facilitate retreats and trainings and that sort of thing. And we're going to have to start taking that online as well for a little while. Listen, I know I've been talking about the politics stuff lately a lot on this channel. I know that's how most of you have found me, and that's fun. We're going to keep doing that. Don't worry. But helping organizations and creating better work experiences is one of the things I am deadly serious about. It is something that I have dedicated my life to, dedicated my work to, and now it's going to become even more important because listen, coronavirus, COVID-19, it is not just going to change work for the short term. It is going to change the way organizations function, particularly in regards to virtual working environments for a long time coming. Now, I've always been a fan of work at home. I've worked with a lot of teams who have almost completely or completely virtual workforces, and I think there's a lot of benefit to it. But let's be honest, a lot of organizations are getting pushed into it kicking and screaming. They don't want to do it. They haven't prepared to do it. And now all of a sudden, here we are in a situation where most workforces, it seems, are going to, at some point over the next couple weeks, have to transition to a work-at-home experience. So what I'm going to talk about in this video today, we're going to start off a series of videos I'm going to be doing to help managers and leaders make that transition well. We are going to talk about the 5 core components of a highly resilient team and how you can apply these techniques to a virtual work environment, because it does not matter if the team is working in person all in the same place or if they're all distributed and working in different locations. But before we do that, I want to talk about a few quick things. Number 1, I am going to be upping the ante when it comes to how I am providing help and support for leaders and organizations that are going through this change. So I have this up on my website. You can visit it at zenworkplace.com. A couple of things that are going to be happening in the coming weeks and that I'm going to be launching over the next few days. So the very first thing is on Wednesday, March 18th, I am going to be doing a completely free webinar. It is completely free to sign up for, no strings attached, no sales pitch, about what you need to know to manage a virtual team. If you are a manager and all of a sudden your team has to work from home, this is a webinar you are going to want to attend. It's going to help you out navigate this, not only from a process perspective, but from a people perspective. Listen, folks, I have been screaming and crying and begging sometimes for years for managers to wrap their heads around what it means to manage a human workforce. And sometimes they listen to me, and more oftentimes they don't. But I'll tell you what, if you have not done the things you need to do to build a trusting relationship with the people who report to you at this point, ooh, you are in for a rocky time. But it's not too late. There are still things that you can do right now to get this back on track. Listen, I am deadly serious when I say this. If you do not create a positive working experience as you transition your teams to working from home for a little while, you are going to be in for just even, like you think you're in for a world of hurt now, wait what happens when they come back to work. This is going to be make or break loyalty for a lot of employees. And I can already see this coming. I can see it coming, you know, like when you're driving down the road in your car and a rock is about to hit your windshield and you can see that rock coming in slow motion. This is the problem that I see coming for a lot of managers who do not know how to work in virtual environments. They're going to crack down on control and be like, I need to make sure my people are getting stuff done. They're going to micromanage every little aspect of it. They're going to piss a lot of people off. And then they're going to wonder why their team is going to leave them when they get back to the normal work environment, because this is going to pass. We don't know exactly when it's going to pass, but it will pass. And what you do between now and when life starts to go back to normal is going to be make or break for how your team operates moving forward. So you don't want to let what is going to be a little interim period of working a little bit differently impact your team for the long term. So that's what we're going to be talking about in that webinar. Other things I have going on is that I'm going to be relaunching my Manager Mastery Manager Training Program, but I'm going to be reformatting the content so it is specifically focused on virtual teams. This is not quite done yet. It's going to happen in the next couple days, and I will have more information about it on that free webinar. Another thing I'm going to be doing is creating a group coaching program for managers that are looking for ongoing guidance and support. We're going to be able to meet via video conference, discuss issues that are important to you, strategize, brainstorm, maybe help each other out. I think it's going to be really great. We're going to not only receive help from me, but you're also going to be able to receive help from people who are in exactly the same position as you are. Other things I've done is I've opened up just a few coaching slots specifically for executives who are looking for help and support as they move their team through this challenge. I am also going to be writing articles for Forbes on this topic, so make sure you're following me on Forbes.com. And I am, of course, going to be producing videos on this topic to help people out. So these are the small ways in which I am going to help. Lastly, I would just remind you that although most of my training programs are specifically done in person a lot of times, I can always adapt them to go online. Listen, this is not the time to stop providing help and support to your team. I promise you, it is going to come back to bite you if you do. This is the time when they really need it the most. So if you are looking for any sort of training or development for your team, reach out. We can talk about how to bring those things online. I even have all the technology set up so you don't have to worry about it. Again, all this can be found on my website, zenworkplace.com. Other things you can do is, listen, a lot of you have asked me for this, and so I finally launched it. It looks a little janky right now, but I promise you I'm going to make it better. Literally, I just threw this together this morning just to have it up, but I wanted you to know that I am on subscribestar.com. Many of you have asked how you can help and support my work, and I greatly appreciate the offer. Listen, this is all throwing my work into flux as well. I'm not exactly sure how this is going to level out. Don't worry, I'm not in the poorhouse. My husband and I are going to keep the heat on, and we have food and all that. But if you want to help and support my work, you can do it by going to subscribestar.com/Carlin. It is just my first name, and you're going to be able to select whatever dollar amount works for you. The other way you can support me is by making sure you're subscribed to my YouTube channel, making sure that you're coming for the live streams that we're going to be doing. Listen, I've got a really fun one coming up. I think it's going to be this week. I'm still working out the time, but we're actually going to bring my coach onto YouTube, and he and I are going to have a little chat about what's going on. And, fun fact, my coaches, and this might destroy my credibility, but we're going to go for it anyway, because you're going to find out. My coach is actually a psychic. He's an astrologer. That's not the reason I coach with him. He's actually also just a really smart guy, and he's responsible for keeping my head in exactly the place I need it, in a positive, optimistic outlook. And so we're going to be having a chat about what's going on, maybe things people need to know. He's really fun. He's really entertaining. I know you all are just going to love him, but make sure you come to the live streams. Make sure you're, sharing the videos, subscribing to the channel, all that good stuff really helps me out as well. All right, that was a super long intro. I know, I bury the lead. But listen, I do want to have a conversation today about what components make up highly resilient teams. This is work that I do as the Chief Science Officer of Rally Bright, and we basically have an assessment that measures the resiliency of teams and tells you exactly what you need to do in order to increase their resiliency. Now, I'm not going to do a sales pitch on it right now. This is not about that. What I want to really articulate, though, are what are the 5 dimensions that you need to think about in terms of your team resiliency. And resiliency is essentially being able to persevere in the face of a challenge, being able to get back up when you've been knocked down again, being able to remain flexible and really adapt to whatever the situation calls for it. Listen, if there was ever a time for teams to need to be more resilient, I can't imagine what it is. This is go time, folks, and maybe you haven't done something like this before with your team, but hey, better late to the party than not showing up at all. So this is an article that Glassdoor actually did about Rally Bright, specifically for employers. It mentions right up at the top that only 2% of teams are highly resilient. 2%. And that Like, that's in normal times. That is not in coronavirus crisis times. That's normally. And so for most of you are going to have issues as your team transitions through this environment. And by going through the 5 core dimensions of what it means to be a resilient team, that's when we can start providing them with the structure that they need to be successful. So this image is a little bit small, so we're just gonna make that bigger. Bing! All right, the 5 core dimensions that make up a resilient team. I'm going to explain what each dimension is, and we're going to talk about how you can apply it in a virtual environment. Ready to go? All right, we're going to start off with direction. Direction is all about what is the team's shared purpose? What is the goal that they are all working towards that they all know, identify, and can agree upon? Listen, one of 2 things happens when I'm measuring the direction of a team. It is almost always, universally, one of these 2 things. Number 1, we find out that yes, the team does know what their direction is. They're all very clear on what the goal is that they are trying to accomplish together. But number 2, and frankly, this is far more likely, the team all thinks they know what their shared purpose is. They all think they know what their shared direction is. But when you ask them what it is, they all have wildly different ideas. They are all over the place with what that direction is. So, in order to create a highly resilient team, we need to be very, very clear on what our direction is. This has got to be clearly communicated to the team. If you are thinking that if you're feeling like a broken record, if you're feeling like you've said it too much, if you're feeling like you're saying it so much, you're almost like hitting them over the head with a sledgehammer with it, they're so sick and tired of hearing it, guess what? That is the right amount. It takes, on average, 7 times of hearing a message, 7 times, for it to make its way into the conscious part of our brain. And so don't be afraid to repeat these things over and over and over again. This is particularly important when your team is going to be distributed. What are you all working on together? What is your shared purpose? You also want to make sure that you are having opportunities to have regular conversations with the team as a whole. Now, we're going to talk about one-on-one communication in a second. That's an important piece as well. But you want to make sure that the team has regular intervals where they are coming together as a team, even if it's over Zoom, even if it's over video conference. Listen, don't confuse it. Technology works when you allow it to. Technology allows you to build and maintain those human relationships just as you can in person. Don't get in your head about this. Don't say, oh, technology is not good enough, or we're not going to be able to do this. Technology is amazing. It is amazing. There is no reason why you cannot get the whole team on a Zoom call once a week to make sure everyone is clear on what they're doing, everyone knows what everyone else is doing, and you're still pushing forward. All right, the second component of a highly resilient team is connection. Now, this is the psychological safety component. This is when team members feel like other team members of the team have their back. If they have failures, the team is going to pick them up and support them. They have open, transparent communication, and they are able to engage in productive conflict. So communication is going to be absolutely critical during this time period. If you are not, as a manager of a team, having weekly one-on-one meetings with each and every person on your team, well, guess what? Now is as good a time to start as any. You can even be more comfortable. You can do it in your PJs, whatever. I recommend getting dressed when you're working from home, at least from the top up anyway, so you look nice on camera, but you don't necessarily have to do that. As long as you're communicating and you're keeping those lines open, that's the most important thing. And please, 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 I know this is going to be so easy, but do not default to Slack and email for your communication. Just don't do it. It is not going to help with this component of building a resilient team. Get on Zoom, get on Skype, do something where people can see you, or at bare minimum, you're picking up the phone, because hearing the intonation in your voice is still going to be critically important to maintaining these open lines. Okay, next up, we have alignment, and alignment actually has two different parts to it. The first thing we want to look at is how aligned is the team internally with other teams they're working with in the organization. As the leader of the team, this is going to be incredibly important for you to be in touch with other managers in the organization on a very regular basis. You might want to set up maybe your own Slack channel for them, your own distribution list, however you guys want to do it. It doesn't really matter. I just want you to make sure you're keeping in regular touch with other managers in the organization in case your team needs something from their teams. Because even if you are operating as a pretty standalone unit, chances are you're still going to need something from other people in the organization. Now is the time to really make sure you've got that human communication under control. But the other part of alignment is external. And external right now, this is just about really having your finger on the pulse of what's going on with the consumer. Right now, everyone's scared, folks. Everyone's scared. And it's important to know where your customer's at. It's important to know what they need. It's important to try to serve them to the best of your ability where they are right now. And I would strongly encourage you, listen, don't worry about making money in this time period. I know these are businesses. We have to make money. We have to run our business. I firmly believe that this is about service first. Listen, people are going to be struggling in this time period, but not everyone's going to be struggling. A lot of places people are going to be okay. Business is going to continue to operate. But if you come from a place of service where people think that you're not trying to gouge them, you're not trying to get something out of them, that's going to be all the better. Okay, people understand that things cost money. I do not believe that our economy is going to come to an absolute grinding halt, but we are probably going to have to tighten our belts a little bit in the meantime, and this is okay. This is something that if we keep our resiliency level high, we can navigate, we can come out of successfully. But we do have to keep our finger on the pulse and be very mindful of what's going on in the minds of our customers right now. When people are scared, they don't act rationally, and a lot of people right now are scared. All right. Next up is performance. And performance is not necessarily what you might think of in terms of like an annual performance review or like a strategic plan, anything like that that's getting blown out of the water right now. Performance is about, does the team have the procedures and the tools in place to help them succeed? So oftentimes when we're measuring the performance category, what we find is, things like their meetings are really unproductive. So this is really a great time to get your team meetings under control, to really get them honed in, to get them focused. We might find that teams don't have a dashboard that they're working from to know what's going on. So great time if you don't have a project management tool or a dashboard to be thinking about that. We also find that maybe the team has difficulty prioritizing. Listen, quick tip. I know one person who's a daily scrum with his team. They're going to do a scrum at the beginning of the day, scrum at the end of the day. The advice I gave to him was at the beginning of the day, just have people prioritize their top 3 things. 3 things I want to accomplish today. And that way, as the manager, he has an opportunity to go in and reprioritize things if it's necessary and just know where his team is at. Then at the end of the day, what was my progress on those 3 things? So super quick, super to the point, enhances accountability, also lets other people know what's going on. And lastly, our last component of a highly resilient team is optimism. Optimism is about someone's commitment to being part of the team, someone's, optimism about what's going to happen, and do they have a nice, flexible growth mindset. Now, optimism, attitude at this point is going to be one of the things that is probably going to take a hit for a lot of people because, again, just like your customers are scared, your employees are scared too. They're scared too. And it can be really hard to remain excited about work when we have so many things that are up in the air right now, things that we don't know the answers to, things that as a manager and a leader, you're not going to be able to provide them. But this is the area that we want to pay attention to the most, because if you show up as a boss, if you do the things you need to do, if you come to my webinar on Wednesday and you do what I tell you to do, you're going to be able to impact the attitude of your team. Do not mistake fear with commitment. I think a lot of people, probably especially right now, probably right this week, they're going to be afraid. But it's not always going to be this way. It's not. And as a leader, you have to be there to pick them up, to support them, to listen to them, to hear them out. This is a time to put your listening hat on and let people talk and let people use you as that wonderful coach to help them through this. All right, so those are our 5 core components of a highly resilient team. This is a subject I'm going to be digging into much more in depth over the next couple of weeks, but this is your primer. This is kind of like our first step on this. I just want to get you used to the information, listening to the information, and thinking about ways to apply it. So these are the things we want to be thinking about. To reiterate one more time: the direction of your team. Do they all have the same shared purpose? The connection of your team. Are the lines of communication open? Are you looking for ways to use technology to support not only one-on-one communication, but also team communication? Alignment. How aligned is this team with other teams in the company that are all working virtually? Performance. Does the team have the tools and the processes that they need to be successful? And attitude. Is the team committed to remaining a part of this team? Do some brainstorming on that, and we're going to be covering more in-depth information in the webinar on Wednesday and also in these videos as we proceed.